What is the best PhD or master's thesis that I've ever read? Really? Did people read those things? Like, seriously? Come on, nobody ever reads those things. The only people that will ever read it is the couple people that are actually working on it, and the rest of us never care. Honestly, you gotta be really cynical with this stuff. There's literally just a really small, tiny group of people that ever read this. The first one is you, the person that actually wrote this thing, and then the other person is maybe the advisor, and then a couple of people, maybe two people that are on the committee, and the rest of it, nobody cares. Like, nobody cares. There is a ton of PhD theses, thesi that are written that never ever see the light of day. And you can look those up. You can go and look at all of the sort of citation stuff. Even papers that are published within major research journals. It is incredible. You know, a good citation factor, or what they call a sort of, the number of citations that an a paper gets, or a journal actually gets. And you know what's really exciting? If you have 8 citations, 8 people. So maybe if you have 8 people that have read this thing, then, or 8 people that have cited this thing, so maybe 50 people have actually read this thing. And the rest of the people don't care. Like, it's such a ridiculous endeavor if you think about it, right? But this is exactly what creative industries are about. It's not about having some really big breakthrough that happens within a thesis and all of a sudden everything is like different or revolutionary. That's not what's happening. It's putting in that constant effort day in and day out that kind of builds. It's kind of a gradual thing that happens. And if you stick with it for 30 years or 50 years, all of a sudden you have this pretty good understanding of what's going on. And then the rest of it is like, nobody cares, right? Like, the number of people that have asked me to read my PhD thesis is like 3, and I've been out for a long time. I spent a great deal of effort on that thing, and it's long. I think originally it was like 400 pages, but I cut it back to 300 or something like that. It's long and lengthy, and it's got a lot of information in it. But then I also look back and I think, like, with my own PhD thesis, I was proud of it. It's still a pretty good piece of work, but it still is like not that great, right? Like, it's not as good as what it could be in terms of the understanding that I have. So what do most people do with this? Well, what they end up doing is they take that knowledge that they learned within that PhD thesis or the master's thesis, and they try to get it published. And even then, once they get that published, there's a great deal of rigmarole that happens. Like, the time, particularly in our field, it's crazy. It's gonna take you like 5 years, maybe 10 years to get this damn stuff out and done and published. Other fields, it's a lot easier, right? It's kind of more standardized, but our field is like ridiculous. So, if it takes you 5 to 10 years, maybe if you go to the best university, the very best, and you're the best of the, you're the prettiest girl at the ball, you're the prettiest boy at the ball, and everybody loves you and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the way that the market structure works. And you are the person. It might still take you 5 years to actually get this out. I've seen a lot of people that go to like really highfalutin schools after they've graduated in the job market, and they're super highfalutin schools, and still takes them. So they went from a super highfalutin school and did their PhD with all the best people in the entire in the entire market, in the best scientists, best researcher, whatever, and then they go to the best school and all that kind of stuff. It still takes them 5 to 10 years to get this damn stuff out, and then it gets out, and yeah, it's pretty revolutionary. It's pretty interesting. Even when it's pretty interesting, pretty revolutionary, people are like, meh. Like, seriously, nobody cares. And it is this constant effort of showing up and doing the same thing over and over and over again that actually does matter. And what's really interesting is that I will there'll be people that I will run into at conferences and stuff, and I'll be like, oh yeah, he's a nice person, or she's a nice person, and then shortly thereafter, somebody be like, didn't you read that person's article? Didn't you find out what, like, isn't that amazing what they've done? And they're like this super famous person. I remember walking up to this person years and years ago, it was like 10 years ago, and I was just walking and chatting with them. It turns out that this person was like the most famous person in the entire field of organizational behavior and industrial psychology. The person that sort of defined how we think about goals and goal setting and things like that. And I don't know, I'm like, who cares at that time? But now I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, really? So what it is this sort of long-term endeavor that happens time and time again. Nobody else is ever going to read this thing. So don't get all excited about any of this. I'm serious. Don't get excited about this stuff. Just put in the work every day and build a career. Build your thing. Don't worry about having some sort of famous thing that people are going to read, this masterpiece and all that kind of stuff. That world of you writing something that is a masterpiece, that is long gone. That doesn't exist so much anymore. That's maybe 150 years ago when we didn't have all of these outlets and all this kind of stuff, and maybe 100 years ago where we had just a couple of outlets. But man, we've got outlets all over. What I'm talking about is different ways to publish it in different kinds of ways that actually matter, right? Like going through and getting your work into the real world is what actually matters more than that specific amazing thesis that you think everybody is going to read. Doesn't work like that, unfortunately. But anyways, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.